Hey, what's up guys? In this Lightroom Classic tutorial, I'm going to show you how to sharpen an image in the detail panel. So right now I have this photo I took in Easter Island and I'm just going to zoom in. And if you notice, if I'm not zoomed in, there's like a warning sign here that warns me to make sure I zoom in to see the results of the sharpening more accurately. Anyways, by default, Lightroom Classic, it usually has sharpening already added to it. So this image had no adjustments and it was automatically at 40 for the amount of sharpening, radius of 1 and detail of 25. If I click reset, you'll notice the sharpening is still at its default. Anyways, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more right here. I'm going to press Control or Command click hold and select this area to zoom in. Actually, that doesn't look good. I'm going to zoom in more by pressing Shift mouse click and dragging. And I'm going to sharpen this area right here. You can notice a little bit of chromatic aberration here. So I'm just going to go to lens correction and remove chromatic aberration. Okay, that looks good. Now I'm going back to the detail panel and I'm going to zoom in a little bit more just to give you guys a better idea of how sharpening works in Lightroom Classic. So with the default slider, the amount, it controls obviously the amount of sharpening, but the more you increase it, the more noise comes into the image. So you got to be careful that you don't sharpen the image too much. And the radius slider controls the distance from each pixel that you want sharpening. So most of the time people like to do edge sharpening. So think of the radius as the radius from the pixels from the edge. So let me just crank this sharpening up a little bit more. And then let me increase the radius. So you can notice this halo effect, and that's the radius. The sharpening is wider and it's usually used more, like a higher radius, when you have like structures or like buildings with high contrast areas with the background. But usually a radius of 1 to 1.5 is usually good enough, but it depends on if there's a lot of noise in the image or how soft the image is. And sharpening, there's the amount slider, and what could be confusing sometimes is the detail slider. So as you're sharpening, the sharpening mainly is for the edges, but it also controls the sharpening of the detail or the texture of an image. So as you see, as I'm increasing the sharpening, it's also increasing or trying to sharpen this area, but it's better to use detail to add more texture to the image. But usually detail, it's good to leave it at the default, because if you want to add texture to an image, you can use this texture slider right here to add more texture if you want. So in Lightroom Classics, some of the tools, they do similar things depending on which panel you're in. Anyways, going back to the detail tool or the detail panel and sharpening, let me just reset this. So, okay, actually I have to turn back on the chromatic aberration removal. So the one thing you notice is, as I mentioned earlier, when you increase the sharpening too much, you can introduce or sharpen the noise in the image or the artifacts in the image. And the way we can control that is by using the masking. So I can just slide the masking tool and it'll only sharpen the edges. And the better way to show you that is, let me zoom out here. Now I'm going to change the masking slider and I'm going to slide this while pressing or holding the Option or Alt key. And now you can see where the mask is applied. So when you sharpen, and you want to use the masking slider and you want to sharpen only the white areas. So that's to make sure you don't get the sky. So now I'm only going to sharpen the edges of this image, especially these statues, without affecting the sky. You can see I cranked up the amount here. I'll keep the radius at 1. And I'm overcooking this as an example just to show you there's no detail or sharpening being increased to the sky. If I decrease the mask, you can see the sky being sharpened. So normally the default value or sharpening in Lightroom Classic, it's pretty sufficient. Let me just reset this sharpening. But if you want to improve it, you need to go back and forth with these sliders and see if you can find like a middle ground. And here we go. This radius looks good. Add a little bit more detail. And I will mask it. So let's see the before and after. So it wasn't much big of a deal, but if I go to sharpening And instead of having the default 40, if I decrease it, now you can notice a slight difference in the detail. And let me increase it. And now you can see the edge getting sharper a little bit. Right now it's soft at 0 and sharper at around 52. So now I hope you guys understand how sharpening works in the detail panel. If you guys enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe, and follow me on Instagram. And as always, live easy, sleep breezy, and stay lovely.